So Rich, just like any other device these days, menus drive everything.
Oh yeah, lots of choices. Let's jump into some of the critical ones here.
Yep.
Giant wrench often means settings or gears or changing things,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll engage that.
So Rich, most of the changes that we're going to make on the camera, on the GoPro, are going to exist in this setup menu. Pretty much anything that we want to configure is here, and there's a lot of stuff. First, it's just what mode you're in, whether you're in video mode, photo mode, burst mode, time-lapse mode, and these all should make sense, obviously, these different modes.
Yeah, and what you can do is set the default mode so the camera always starts up in a certain mode. So if you're going to use this for video a lot, just set it so the default mode will be video. Now, the other thing here, easy enough as we cycle through, what is this button going to do? Well, the one button is going to turn it off or on, and that's fine enough.
Sure.
You can decide how that behaves.
Yep.
Here's the big one, NTSC or PAL.
Yeah, and this will frustrate you a lot if you're trying to use an external monitor and you don't have this set correctly.
Yeah.
So if you're in the United States or other NTSC countries, you want to use NTSC, obviously. If you're in PAL land, like over in Europe, you want to use that as well.
And you do have the ability how many times the LED will blink. I tend to like 4, so I could really see when feedback is there.
Yep.
But what I don't like is the beeps. They get in the way for me.
Yeah, so audio beeps, I don't care for them. I mean, on this particular camera, they're really loud. Even if you put it at 70%, I wish they had like a little bit of a sliding scale here so we could get it maybe down to like 20% so we could know that something's happening. But I tend to turn them off just because they're kind of annoying.
You do have the ability to say how quickly does it turn off. Is there an auto shutdown after a certain time period?
Right, and just like a DSLR, this is going to be a huge thing if you're shooting all day and you want to conserve battery time. I typically have this set to about 120 seconds. That gives me 2 minutes.
Right, and if it's recording, it's not going to shut down.
Right, this is just inactivity. If it's just sitting around and you're resetting things up, it's a good thing to have on.
And of course, the date and the time.
So if we go into the video resolution menu, you can obviously change the resolution on this particular camera. You could choose from 1080, 960, 720. If you have, for example, a GoPro Black, you'd be able to choose some of the higher resolution modes. And then you can also choose your frame rate here. Now, the thing I want you to make sure that you understand about the frame rate is that it's going to be dependent on the mode that you're using. So for example, we're shooting 720 here. Well, we can record at 60 frames per second.
If we were doing 1080, it'd give us a choice of 24 and 30.
Right, and if you're shooting, for example, with a GoPro Black and you went up to, say, 4K mode, guess what? You're only going to be able to shoot at 15 frames a second.
And some of the frame rates have different fields of view that you could change. Some are locked with wide, but these are all settings that you can go in and actually change and see the different field of views.
Right.
Now, the next one down is going to be the still setting.
So yeah, Rich, you're right that we talked about mode earlier. So depending on what mode you're in, you can choose your megapixel count. You can do things like change your burst mode and things of that nature, which are very useful.
And within these settings here, pretty straightforward stuff, right? We could set the intervals, we could tell it how often, what's the resolution it's capturing the stills, or what's the interval it's going to capture for burst. And let's just step through here real quick. So within capture settings is where you really refine what type of video it's going to record. And this is where we can toggle between an upside down or a right side up video, which is useful if you hang the camera.
Yeah, and we can also do things in this menu in terms of spot metering. So if you need the camera to sort of help you decide proper exposure and that kind of stuff, you can have it do that as well. Now there's another cool thing that I like in here. You'll notice that it's called ProTune. Now ProTune sounds like some nifty optimization. What ProTune really is a codec.
And that's going to give you better quality for the overall video. Now there are of course other settings specific for photos, and some of these are a little tricky to show because you got to cycle through and push the buttons.
Well, the big point here too is that those are some of the essential ones, but like anything else, you only get to know the preferences and know the options by playing with it. So, every time that I get a new piece of gear, I will die if I said that I don't take some photos with it or shoot video with it. But I do eventually start playing with the menu items because that's really where you have a lot of control here. Now, in our experience, I think I speak for you in this, Rich, is that getting to the sort of the 1-2 trick of navigating the menus with the front button, the top button, is a little difficult. That's why we do like the capacitive touch LCD back.
Yeah.
If you're using just the buttons in the front LCD or you're piping it out HDMI, those two navigation buttons can take a little while getting used to. You'll often sort of drive yourself crazy going, I just meant to go back, or I just meant to go up.
Yeah,
it takes a little
you got to
practice.
keep going around the horn and cycle through the menu till you get back to the one you want. So usually what I do is I use the capacitive touch and I engage everything. Then I plug in the external monitor to have better quality for monitoring. Now I do want to hammer two important settings that we showed you that are critical. You will get dramatically different results with your video as you change spot metering as far as exposure goes. And is it just looking in the center, or is it evaluating more of the whole screen when it's deciding how to set things? And with that ProTune, make sure you have a fast memory card, because it is a really robust codec, and it's possible that you'll get dropped frame rates or the camera will stop recording.
Well, and then lastly, Rich, we talked about resolution, in terms of frame size and stuff. Don't be surprised if you don't have some of the resolutions that you see on other people's cameras or that are posted on the GoPro website. Only certain models support certain resolutions. So, for example, if you want 4K recording, guess what? You got to step up to the black model.
All right, well, that gives you an idea with the GoPro. On future episodes, we're going to head out into the field and put it into action. We're going to fly a GoPro, and we're going to show you how to shoot time-lapse and, of course, video.